random where they're going to be.
James, you got any thoughts on that?
I like the point that Joe brought up as far as I think one of the positives with the shakeup is that you do get more of the local flavor as far as the rivalries when it comes to your region play. And then I think we all heard as far as I think we can remember just right off the top of my head, former Munford coach Michael Easley always brought up as far as just kind of the inconsistent balance over the last couple of years when it came to having the quality home games when it comes to making the money at the gate. So I think that's a good point that Joe brought up as far as one of those benefits, whether not only for Piedmont, but you look at in the particular region, Ohatchee, those type of schools, that this could give a much needed inflow of cash to when it comes to their the money that they get from the gates.
Right. Okay, guys. Well, you want to of the area teams in our area, Joe, which classification region caught your eye first? Is it the 4A one with Leeds and Moody and Lincoln and all the others?
Yes, because that's the one where quite probably 4 playoff quality teams won't have playoff quality records and won't go to the playoffs. Just based on history and what they've been recently too. That's just, man, that's tough. Who gets to stay home in that region, and because of that, you're going to have another region where maybe teams that might not make the playoffs get in.
For folks that are watching online and through the app and all that, we're going to start throwing these local regions up on the screen for you. Here's Class 4A Region 6. Let me read them down for everybody, guys. Alexandria, Anniston, Central Clay County, Jacksonville, Leeds, Lincoln, Moody, and Sylacauga. I mean, guys, if you're not a decent football team, you might not win a game in that region.
I mean, it's like they took, okay, what's the best in this area of the state in 4A, and what's the best in this area of the state in 5A, and let's just put them all in one super region.
Pretty much. I mean, this looks like what we would have seen the last several years as far as just in the North Division, almost a full playoff field for November.
Yeah, well, I mean, this. I think Jake said it when we were looking at this earlier today. There's some good football teams in this region that aren't going to make the playoffs.
Exactly, and I think of Lincoln's obviously trying to grow their program and get back to competitiveness, and man, they got stuck in there. That's a tough region to try to get back to competitiveness in.
Oh, no question.
I mean, Joe, you can say the same thing as Sylacauga. Chris Smelly the last couple of years really trying to do the same thing for what's pretty much been a proud football program that's been on tough times the last 3 or 4 years.
Exactly. I mean, those two are like probably the ones that lose the most in that alignment. Again, just trying to grow something and get back to being competitive again. It's hard to do it in that region.
Well,
but I tell you what, I want to throw.
Go ahead, James.
Well, I wondered if you remember right before all of this came about, when Jake Gaines left Moody to go to Pell City. It seems as if it's now almost like perfect timing for him if he wanted to make the jump up to Pell City. Up now with the total reshuffling of total reclassification to make. Even though it was originally a step up in classification, it's still a step up in classification. And with everything that's shaken out, this was like perfect timing in a lot of ways for Jake Guinness to make the move.
And that region too, that what's now 5A Region 6 is essentially the 6A region that we've been used to with Oxford, a lot of the same teams. So it's, for those folks, that's not much of a change.
Going back to 4A Region 6, guys, I mean, you throw Central Clay County in there, and when you first see that, you think, well, that's automatic. But then you see Leeds and Moody in there, and, of course, Anniston, too. there's a lot of unanswered questions there. Anniston's got to hire a new coach. They hadn't hired anyone yet, have they, Joe?
No.
Okay. And, of course, Moody, Gaines leaves Moody, and they've got a new guy. And from what, the rumor mill or the street stuff is, Gaines has taken a good many players from Moody to Pell City with him. And, of course, we don't know. We know Leeds will be good. We just don't know how good. I was very impressed with what Jeremy Sullivan did with Jacksonville in his first year. And, Alexandria, Joe, should be as good or better, I think, this year.
Yeah. Jeremy Sullivan, and I've been communicating with him today, but, I think when he came to Jacksonville, there was a lot of talk around Jacksonville that eventually they were going to go back to 4A, and they were kind of looking forward to that. Well, they're back in 4A.
Yeah.
So look who they're paired with now.
So is everybody else.
It's wow. Holy cow.
Well, guys, tell you what, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and run through the all the local classifications real quick so we can get Joe's thoughts before we have to turn him loose. We will start here with the 1A classifications, if I can get us there. Here we go. And for folks that are seeing these online, all of these slates that you're seeing are going to be on our Facebook page as soon as we finish the show. We're going to load them all up. So you can get a chance to look at these anytime you want to over the next few weeks. All right, 1A Region 6, Joe. I've never heard of Alabama Aerospace and Aviation. Where is it?
Apparently somewhere south.
Yeah, because
I had to. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
James. Have you ever heard of it?
Honestly, I had never heard of it before today.
Well, they're at the top of the list in Region 6 1A, followed by Fayetteville, which is down in Sylacauga, Lafayette, which is south of here a good bit, Lochapoka, Nottawaga, Wadley, Winterboro, and Woodland. So, when you look at this one, Joe, the first thing I think you got to think is, this looks like a pretty good draw for Wadley.
Yeah, of course they're about to lose Yaquez Wilkes, but if they are what they've been and Winterboro is what they've been recently, you would think they would do pretty well. Going back to Alabama Aerospace and Aviation, if you're that school, you got to have a passing offense, don't you? I
mean, either that or the coach looks for a job often.
Yeah, you're not going to run the wing T with your Alabama Aerospace and Aviation, but yeah, Wadley and Winterboro I think look pretty good in that setup. Of course, you don't know. I mean, Lafayette can end up being really good.
Yep.
Lochapoka, Nottawaga, they're in that area where you can have a good group of athletes come through on a given year. And
if you're Skylar Mansfield, you're probably asking yourself, how do I get away from Wadley?
Yeah,
down at Winterboro.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's move to our next one. This is 1A Region 8. This includes Appalachian, Cedar Bluff, Galesville, Raglan, Spring Garden, Valley Head, and Woodville. Good bit of traveling in that region, James.
Yeah, pretty good bit. And actually, other than Woodville, there's really not a lot of changes as far as 1A Region 8 than it has been the last several seasons. But you mentioned, Jim, and I've got actually the map from the HSAA pulled up of the new configured regions, and especially if you're looking at Ragland or Woodville, that's a lot of travel as far as those region games on the road on Friday nights.
All right.
And a big question mark, what do they do if Ragland is suddenly no more?
Yeah, because that's a real possibility. When's that tax referendum supposed to come down, Joe? It's pretty soon, isn't it?
I'm not certain about that, but I just know that's been hanging in the air for a while.
Well, from what I understand, there is a like a tax for that specific area that is earmarked to go to keep Ragland, viable. And from what I've read, if it passes, the school will be okay for at least for a while. And if it doesn't pass, that's almost the death penalty. So they've got to raise money to keep the school going. That's the bottom line on it. And they've got a pretty good history over there athletically, and be sad to see them go. Love them Purple Devils.
Yeah, I know. Especially, I remember when their softball team was one of those teams that was going to went to Montgomery and won every year, and so yeah, there's a pretty good history there.
All right. Up next, 2A Region 4. This one's kind of interesting. I don't know that we've got a lot of change here, but maybe enough to matter. B.B. Comer tops the list, followed by Coosa Central, Dadeville, Horseshoe Bend, Lynette, Ranburne, Randolph County, and Reeltown. Good bit of traveling there too, Joe.
Yeah, and just off the top, Lynette seems to me to be the team that you would look at as a potential top dog in that thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Ranburne in that region is going to be kind of like Woodland in that 1A region we were talking about earlier in terms of kind of, it would seem to me, are they northernmost? As you look at it?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, they are. And what most south would be Reeltown, wouldn't it? Or Horseshoe Bend?
Yes, Reeltown.
Reeltown would be the furthest south. I think it's interesting that Randolph County landed in this region. They could make some noise.
Yeah, of course. They keep coming up with athletic running backs. If they find a Mo Winston, they can make a noise in just about every
in any region
they could go to.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's hustle up on to 2A Region 6 here. This has a lot of local teams in it. Gaston is the top of the list, followed by Ohatchee, Piedmont, Pleasant Valley, Saxe, Vincent, Walter Wellborn, and West End Walnut Grove. There's some hell of a football games in this one, James.
Yeah, a lot of physical football. Anytime you put Walter Wellborn in a region, you're going to get a lot of physical football, but also a lot of tradition when it comes to Piedmont, right at the top of the list in my mind, and then Walter Wellborn with a proud history of its own, and Ohatchee. And I think those are the first three that come to mind, but wasn't that long ago, too, before Jonathan Miller went just up the road to Piedmont to step in the shoes that Steve Smith left behind when Saxe was rolling on the north side of Anderson.
Yeah, for sure. And, the team that a lot of folks in our area are not going to know about is Vincent. They've had a pretty solid program, Joe, down there the last 2 or 3 years.
They have, and but I'll tell you what, I really like Piedmont in this region. In fact, I talked to Jonathan Miller, or communicated with him earlier today, and he did not. He was really surprised to see them go down to 2A. He was not expecting that, but maybe that's a little bit of fate paying him back for, putting him in Mars Hill's path the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Well, this region, if we're honest about it, based on what we know coming out of the last few seasons, Piedmont's the class of the field. I mean, there's no question about it. Everybody agree there?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, let's scoot on here and bring up 3A Region 4. This one is really interesting to me. You've got Asheville, who's coming off a really solid year, Childersburg, Cleburne County, Hanley, Munford, Talladega, Weaver, and White Plains. So, Hanley's got to be the favorite, I would think. just because of past performance. But this one, to me, James, it's open for a lot of stuff.
I agree. I was just thinking that it's a wide open region and we saw Asheville start to make some moves last year in Class 4A in Region 6. So they're dropping down the classification, as well as White Plains, Munford dropping down a classification, which was pretty much counted on well before today. But I think there's pretty much all of these teams, when you leave off Handley, an opportunity to make their mark and take a step up or two with their football programs.
No question.
And then on the other end of that, essentially, if you look at the way these teams have been classified previously, Weaver is basically being moved up into a 4A region.
Yep, correct.
And that's that's another program that's trying to get back to a better place, and that's tough for them. You got to be, if you look at all the the Calhoun County schools that they've typically been aligned with over the years, and they're in that 2A region now, and Weaver's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb by itself in this 3A region.
For sure. When I look at this region, Joe, I think about Clint Smith out at White Plains. This might give him the opportunity to make a little noise and not be the bottom of the barrel like they've been for several years.
Yeah, and I see schools in that alignment that kind of have similar problems, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
In terms of
trying to get their footing.
Exactly.
There's a lot of long road games in this region, though. You think about Childersburg having to go to Hanley, or just about any of them that have to go to Hanley. That's a haul, or Childersburg over to Cleburne County, or vice versa. There's some good gate games in this, but there's also some considerable travel.
Indeed.
All right,
but going back to what I mentioned about what Coach Easley mentioned as far as the travel, especially down to Bullitt County along I-85, those what were region games, especially for Talladega and for Munford, this has to be a very welcome relief that they have at least region games that are a bit closer to home than what they had.
But Joe, the question Jake and I had earlier when we were looking at this, does this make all these teams play in the South?
It looks that way, yeah. They've all of these teams have kind of been, either 4A or 3A borderline as we followed reclassifications over the years, and it looks to me like they kind of slipped to the south side of the border now.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame to see that for Asheville, though. I mean, they're a long way above the line.
This, and again, almost all of these teams were teams that were 4A previously, and 4A in Alabama, I've always heard like the majority of 4A, the strength of 4A is in the South, but the majority of 4A is in the North.
Yeah.
And that's why you have these awkward setups with 4A sometimes.
All right.
Now 3A.
Let's cruise on up to 3A Region 6. This sucks in a lot of the Etowah County stuff and adjacents. You got Etowah and Glencoe, Hanceville, Hoax Bluff, Holly Pond, Aniana, Susan Moore, and Vinemont. So what sticks out to you, Joe, in this?
To me, it's a lot of teams that look the same.
Yeah.
And maybe some of them have had richer histories than others, but in terms of where they are right now as a program, I see a lot of teams that I think it's a very competitive region just from the standpoint of I don't know there's really anybody that stands out.
That's kind of what I left it with. A couple of years ago, we would have said Aniana was the top dog, but Hoax Bluff would have to be considered, I would think. And if Etowah could ever get straight, they should poise to be a competitive team in this bunch. And Glencoe's coming off a solid year. I mean, they've changed coaches because Blaley went to Cherokee County, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you, Joe. This is kind of like a level playing field.
Lot of schools that look the same to me.
Yep. James, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm just looking at Etowah, and I mean, we know they've struggled the last few years as far as just trying to find some stability. And I think for them, this may be the one team in this newfound Region 6 that may have an opportunity basically to press the reset button and see if they can get things going again.
All right, let's roll on here. We believe it or not, we're getting close to the end. Class 4A Region 6. Now here's the barn burner: Alexandria, Anniston, Central Clay County, Jacksonville, Leeds, Lincoln, Moody, and Sylacauga.
The common line that we hear coaches say when they talk about one of their regions being one of the toughest in Alabama, they always refer to it as the SEC West of whatever classification. This looks to me like the Big Ten of Alabama football.
I was about to say the same thing.
Based on what's trending in college football right now, this bunch. If I were going to try to pick a winner next year in this league, again, it's hard to say because again, Gannis took a lot of players with him. Central Clay is awfully steady.
I would have said when you said pick a favorite, I would have said Danny Horn.
Yeah, and of course, does he retire?
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
there's another thought.
There's too many unanswered questions for a couple of teams in this region. We don't know what we're going to get with Anniston. They're yet to name a new coach, and everything's been shuffled up at Moody. I mean, I think they'll still be good, but there's a difference between good and great. And we don't know what year 2 at Lincoln is going to look like either. I thought they made some strides last year, even though it didn't necessarily show up on the wins-loss side of things. But I've got faith in that guy to do the job. So there's no easy night in this region.
No. And if I'm scheduling non-region games in this region, I'm scheduling at least one open date and the smallest private school I can find.
All right, here we go. Let's move on to Region 8 now in Class 4A. This one's kind of vegetable soup here compared to where these guys have been in the past. You got AP Brewer, Cherokee County, Crossville, Fairview, Good Hope, Gunnersville, Hayden, and Sardis.
When I was talking earlier about how whenever they reshuffle the deck chairs every 2 years, there's going to be that team that kind of gets separated from what they've been and gets sent into a whole new neighborhood, and that's Cherokee County
for sure.
In this mix, that's I don't see anything for them that even looks familiar.
Yeah. Well, I think Joe, I think you could almost throw Gunnersville in that too.
Yeah, you could. So I don't even know. I don't even have a great feel for that one, for that region. And of course, you don't know what Cherokee County is going to be with a new coach.
Exactly.
If Bailey Blanchard does like he did at Glencoe last year, then they'll be fine.
Well, I think that's what's expected up there. All right, let's jump up to Class 5A, Region 6. And this is the Oxford Pell City region. You got Clay Chalkville, which is a standard there, Douglas, Oxford, Pell City, Pinson Valley, bring in Southside, Springville, and St. Clair County goes up. They were with Leeds, Moody, and that bunch last year, but apparently their numbers went up, and they wound up in Region 6.
Just looking at this, I think Southside and St. Clair County certainly for Southside. I think they've gone into a much tougher region than they were in Class 6A the last 2 years.
Yeah, we're going to try to grab Miles Holcomb, the coach for the Crimson Panthers, here in just a little while after we get through some of our other guests and get his thoughts on this. I tried to get Sam Adams on with us, but he's in Disney World. And then, we don't know what Pell City's going to be. I mean, you got to think they're going to be good, or I would say better with Gaines there. But, I mean, they had a pretty good year last year, Joe.
They're improved, and Lord knows they've tried Steve Mask. They tried Rush Probst. Now now they're trying something else, and it's eventually they're going to find the right formula, and there's potential there, and they might finally realize their potential. But I think if you're Oxford looking at this region, it's basically what you've known and what came in that you don't know so well. Doesn't look that threatening to me, frankly.
Exactly. Is Oxford anywhere closer to going toe to toe with Clay Chalkville? That's gonna determine who wins this thing.
Well, 2 years ago they went toe to toe with Clay Chalkville. It's just how is Clay Chalkville's roster going to change from year to year? If you know what I'm saying,
right?
Is Oxford going to have? Oxford's one of those schools that when they have a good group come through, they're competitive on a statewide level. And where are they on that schedule in terms of their best groups coming through? And the other ones here, Pinson Valley, obviously they're not what they were back in the Knicks days. So I right as I look at this region right now, I think Oxford and Clay Chalkville are kind of your top dogs based on what we've seen so far.
Right.
And if St. Clair County keeps growing into what they seem to be becoming, then they might be that team that surprises people.
Yeah, I would probably pick them third or fourth. We just don't know what Gaines is going to pull out at Pell City. He's definitely one of the state's best up and coming coaches. But the question is, how many of those kids did he actually get in there from Moody that could make a difference? And, what did he inherit when he walked through the door? But I think they're definitely a playoff team. I would be surprised if they were not in the hunt come November. All right, guys, let's see what we got next. Class 6A Region 4. As far as we're concerned, this is the Gadsden City region. They're going to play Bob Jones, Buckhorn, Grissom, Hazel Green, Huntsville, James Clemens, and Sparkman. When I look at this, James, I think this is a region Gadsden City should be able to compete in.
I think so. And you look at Buckhorn and especially Buckhorn and Hazel Green. Those are opponents that Gadsden City has played regularly in region play over the last several years. And even Bob Jones, they've played regularly in their non-region schedule. So albeit, of course, it's a Huntsville-centric region, but I agree with you, Jim. I think this is a region that Gadsden City, I think they can very well compete in, maybe at the very top.
Yeah, if they're going to move up to 7A, which essentially
they moved
into a neighborhood that's this was mostly 7A before, but if they're going to have to move up into what used to be 7A, this would be the neighborhood I'd want to live in if I was them.
Okay. All right, that kind of takes care of this region, and that pretty much covers the public schools that would basically fall in the FNN coverage area. Now, let's move to private A. This is Region 3. There are two groups of private schools, an A and a double A, and then they are divided into, I believe it's 4 regions in each, Joe. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
All right. Private A, Region 3, Autaga Academy, Elwood Christian Academy, Holy Spirit Catholic, Pickens Academy. Here's where Donahoe falls in, Tuscaloosa Academy, and Victory Christian over in Pell City. James, you've done a lot of public or private school games in your days. What sticks out here?
I think what sticks out here for me, one, Tuscaloosa Academy, which is how when they were in the AISA, toward the back end, as far as the football programs, when they started to grow in the 2010s, and then right before they got into the HSAA, and then once they made that transition to the HSAA, they blossomed into what was the last couple of years of promising 2A program. So I think for me, Tuscaloosa Academy is the team to beat in that region.
Yeah, I would say so too. Joe?
Well, you're looking at the top of the region, and I'm looking at poor Donahoe in this mix. and I say poor Donahoe not from a standpoint that competitiveness. I mean, they're going to have their years when they have their good groups come through, and their years maybe when they have a year like last year when they kind of just didn't. Some kids graduated, and they're waiting for their next group of athletes to come through. But man, the travel.
Yes.
That's the thing that I'm looking at when I say poor Donahoe with this, and I hope they got enough people there that have a CDL.
No question. The travel for these private schools is off the chain. I mean, and this isn't just in this region, guys, but it's in other ones as well. Let's go to Private A Region 4. This is where you get Coosa Christian, Decatur Heritage, Lindsay Lane, Mars Hill Bible, Shoals Christian, Westbrook Christian, and Whitesburg Christian. So you got a bunch of road trips in this deal. And,
Mars Hill obviously looks like the top dog in this thing. Another thing that kind of jumps out at me too is just the, Coosa Christian and Westbrook Christian is kind of like the rivalry you want to see.
Sure, for sure.
Especially with Steve at Westbrook now and what Coosa's built, that's going to be a game to cover every year.
Yes, we've already kind of chalked that one in. That looks like a good game of the week to me, James.
That looks like a no-brainer for us.
But, again, Mars Hill Bible is head and shoulders above all these others. I would even say that I would put Westbrook potentially in front of Coosa Christian because Steve's done a great job there. And, I mean, they've come on strong. I think this next year for them could be huge. But again, I don't think anybody's beaten Mars Hill Bible at this point.
Until somebody does it, I'm with you. I think they're far and away the favorite in this region, really in that classification.
Yeah, and guys, that gets us through all of the classifications. If you just joined us in the last few minutes, let me remind you once again, all of these local classifications will be posted on our Facebook page pretty soon when we end the show here. But right now we're gonna turn Joe loose because
can I offer a tangent to that last conversation we were just having about Region 4 private?
Absolutely.
If we're talking about publics and privates playing each other. I really hope we still see Westbrook and Piedmont play every year. They were in the same region. I just the last 2 years, and that's just a game I'd like to see every year.
Well, there's a lot of dynamics to it for sure.
Mm.
Well, Joe, thank you for your time this afternoon. I guess you've got all this on EA Sports Today, I assume.
Yes.
So
like you, I've got all the region alignments for the area for teams in our coverage area. Of course, you got some teams in your coverage area that aren't necessarily in ours, but
right.
But got them all listed there. Got some reaction and trying to get some more reaction through the day.
Before we turn you loose, Joe, what are you hearing out of Montgomery about the legality stuff that's going on?
Not a whole lot. To be honest with you, I don't have a lot of connections in political circles around here.
Right.
But my hope, and this is not really inside information, but more kind of a hope, is that maybe this mitigates efforts on the part of some politicians to try to get involved in high school sports.
Yeah.
If maybe we have this partitioning of the public schools and the private schools, maybe this takes away, hopefully, some of the incentive for them to, frankly, see potential to pander to their base.
Yep, and
that's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I agree totally. We need to try to keep politics out of high school sports. And not to belittle the government on the state or federal level, because, I couldn't do it. Just look at how most programs are handled that were taken over in this type of fashion. It's generally not been a good outcome.
No, and I don't like what I believe is behind this. I see nothing good here, and I realize the Choose Act has had some positive impacts for some people, but for me, it's kind of like the Accountability Act. I think what's behind it is more malevolent than benevolent, and that's just how I see it. And maybe that's my political statement of the day.
All right, well, James, we're going to keep you around, hopefully. Let me know if you need to take off or anything, but we are going to take a quick break right here and basically get another guest online. Coming up next, if we can get him, he's on his way to a game, is Bo Starkey with Average Joe Sports Talk. And Bo knows a lot about what's going on down in Montgomery. So give us a couple of minutes here, and we'll see if we can't get Bo on board, and we'll be right back here on the FNN Reclassification Special. Stay with us. Okay, everyone, welcome back to FNN's AHSAA reclassification special. Jim Jacobs here in the main office. Somewhere tucked away in Lincoln, safe and sound for the weekend, is the voice of the game of the week, James Hardy. And now in an automobile somewhere, the one and only Bo Starkey from Average Joe's Sports Talk that we've had the privilege of knowing and working with over several years. Well, pretty much since you guys started, Bo, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. In some facet, we've worked together and crossed paths back and forth since we got started. That's correct.
Yeah, we're kind of Siamese twins at the Northeast Regionals, aren't we?
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, my back's paying the price from working all those games up there, brother.
You told me the other day that you were involved in photography, I guess, for several games. And, I mean, this is weekly, man. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, it's very difficult, man. And taking the pictures is not that difficult. It's editing them when you get home. And I try to hit at least 3 to 4 games or 3 to 4 nights a week. Usually it's girls and boys games.
Yeah.
And then editing them, it's a lot of work, man. I try to keep feeding the machine, so to speak, to keep the numbers rolling. So.
I hear you. Well, let me start with you with the same question that I've basically been asking everyone, when they step to the plate is, what were your first impressions of the release of the information today?
I don't know if I would say I was shocked. I kind of thought they may do this. I think it's a gutsy move on the ASHAA's part because it's like they kind of threw their gauntlet down and said, hey, we're doing this. It is what it is, and immediately, Will Ainsworth got on and attacked the ASHAA because all the stuff that's going with the state trying to come in and strip power from the ASHA. But it's kind of like they laid their cards on the table and said, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I was shocked from that standpoint. The thing that it's kind of, you take a Douglas, for example, they're now got to play Oxford, Clay Chalkville, Pinson Valley. You look at things like that and you're like, wow. And then immediately on my page, when I started posting some of the region stuff, people were going on there saying, why aren't we playing Piedmont? Well, you're playing Piedmont now because their numbers is similar to your numbers. And there was a buffer between you because you had a buffer of private schools. Well, those private schools are ripped out, so all this has changed. So you're getting that kind of backlash. But I guess the last words I'd say is gutsy. It's a gutsy move on their part to do it right now, I think.
It seems to me, Bo, in looking at the private school areas that they've put together, there's a lot of disparities between the haves and the have-nots.
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
In on several fronts. I mean, first off, there's the skill people, the players, but man, you're looking at some hellacious road trips here.
Oh yeah, you're talking. Some people's going to be taking, like, Glenwood's going to be having to go down to Mobile for region games, 3 hours. I'm looking across the state. I'm seeing 2 hours, 40 minutes for region games. Are those people going to get compensated for that, or is this just, good luck? Or that's a question I'd like to ask, because now that creates other problems for schools. And look, I can't speak on all private schools. My daughter goes to Coosa, but Coosa don't have no money. Like, that's going to be detrimental to them. I can tell you that now.
Yeah,
they
for
don't
sure.
have money to spend on stuff like that. And I'm just telling you. And logistics of stuff like that, it's going to be hard. And it's going to make things tough. And here's the scary part, Jim. There's no easy answer. There's nothing you could say to say, well, we got this. Well, there is no easy answer.
Well,
it's just roll up your sleeves, I guess, and get it done if you want to play.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look, let's take the region there with Mars Hill in it. I mean, you got Mars Hill, who is head and shoulders above all the other teams in that region. But you've got you've got a defending state champion in Coosa. You got what Steve is accomplishing at Westbrook Christian, and I mean, it's like they have no chance at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's going to be – that region right there is going to be extremely tough for people to compete against due to the fact of Mars Hill, because Daryl Higgins has built that thing into a machine methodically the right way. He does it the right way, and he's one of the best coaches in the state. People will gravitate to him because of his leadership, and their administration is top-notch. So they are light years ahead of people, and it's no shot at nobody else. But just from a player standpoint, from what he's built, how long it's taken for him to build it, that's a machine over there, Jim.
Oh, no question. I mean, it's you know, it's kind of like an NFL team in a state setting. Absolutely. They're just that good and have been that way for quite some time, and I don't see anything that makes me think it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, and I know Steve's building something very special there at Westbrook. He's doing it methodically as well, and if you look at them from when he arrived to what they are now, Ray Charles can see the improvement. I mean, it's fast.
Yeah.
But it's because their weight program, it's because they eat correctly, it's because their mindset's changed. So that it's on its way. The last couple of years, it's kind of like he's rolling that snowball up the hill, getting ready for it to gain some steam coming down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I really thought, Bo, after last season, that they were there, and 2026 would be a solid year for Westbrook.
Oh yeah, because they have all the pieces of the puzzle. They have depth. They have a dynamic quarterback. They're very solid up front on both sides, and they don't have a lot of holes. That's how you judge a team. How many holes do they have in their team? You can't look at a position on their team and say, man, they're not really good at that position. They're really solid at some. Now they got Brody Blevins coming back again, one of the best players in North Alabama, and have another year under his belt. So they're going to be really, really good.
Bo, let me get your thoughts on this 4A Region 6. We're talking about, Lincoln, Moody, just a bunch of folks. But the Alexandria, Anniston.
Is that the one with Alexandria, Anniston? Yeah.
Yep.
So, hey, man, that's going to be one of those. Let's see how I can word this. There is no weeks off, and it's one of those you're going to beat each other up. By the time you do get to the playoffs, what do you got left in the tank? But
yeah. You're kind of breaking in and out on us here, Bo, but I'm going to run through the teams in it again if you're still with us. Alexandria, Anniston, Central Clay County, Jacksonville, Leeds, Lincoln, Moody, and Sylacauga. I mean, there's some good football teams in there that won't be playing in November.
You got that right. Just by a war of attrition, so to speak.
Well, and there's so many unanswered questions going into the season. Anniston's got to hire a new coach. What's going to happen there? You know what's happened at Moody with Gaines leaving, going over to Pell City. He's kind of robbed the cupboard a little bit, so we don't know how good they're going to be. Lincoln will be better, but I don't know if they'll be that competitive. And Sylacauga continues to struggle. So. And I think Alexandria is going to be good again.
They're the one team that you mentioned right there that's probably the most stable. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
Because if you look at Moody, I know for a fact, I don't know how many players are going, but the whole staff's gone. And, all the staff is in Pell City. Yeah. And I don't know how many players. I talked to Vlad, who was there today, and he said that he's seen 2 or 3 players there today, so I'm sure there may be more coming after when the spring sports arrive. But I don't know, Jim. I think Alexandria, if you look at that region, may be the most stable team there. And look, what a job have they done? When you rewind the clock 2 years ago and they were 1-9.
Yep.
And he flipped the switch, but he said we're young. They were 5A. He said, man, we're all freshmen and sophomores. Well, now they've grown up 2 years, and now look at them last year.
Oh, they were a couple of plays away from playing for a state.
You got that right.
But so
looking at that, they may be the most stable team in that region.
But James, we say that about Alexandria, Bo and I do, but you just cannot overlook Central Clay County and Danny Horn. They're the model of consistency.
Exactly. You know what you're going to get from Danny Horn's squad. They've been there. They've done that. Maybe other than getting deeper in the playoffs than they've been, but certainly right now, as we're looking at it in late January, 7 months before the regular season starts, Central and Alexandria are in two best positions as far as just knowing, hey, they've got their coaches coming back, they've got their systems, and certainly with that comes the culture of the program. You know what you've got in those two programs.
All right, Bo, let me push you over to 3A Region 6 real quick. Etowah, Glencoe, Hanceville, Hoax Bluff, Holly Pond, Aniana, Susan Moore, and Vinemont.
Dude, you may laugh when I say this. Glencoe's got a realistic shot at that region.
Well, I mean, if they can do or continue to do what Bailey got started last year, I can't disagree with you. And
that's wild to think, man. But I'm telling you, they've got a realistic shot at that region.
Well, and Coach Rob will be steady at Hoax Bluff. How good they'll be, we don't know. Aniana's rebuilding. Vinemont playoff team last year, so when we were talking with Joe about this region, Bo, we basically said we thought this was the everybody's got a shot region.
Yeah, I could see that. No, and look, I'm interested to see what Coach Peavy does at Etowah now. They've dropped from 4 to 3. He's got a year in his belt. There's nowhere to go but up. They got a lot of tradition there, so that's another interesting place. What are they going to look like?
Absolutely. Well, Bo, we appreciate the time as always. It's good to talk to you and get a chance to, share opinions and stuff like that. And hopefully we'll get together and do some other stuff as we move through the spring, summer, and on into fall.
Yes, sir. Holler at me, sir. We'll get together ASAP.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Thank you, buddy.
Bo Starkey, Average Joe Sports Talk, joining us here on the FNN Reclassification Special. Jim Jacobs at our main office here in Anniston. We've got James Hardy, the voice of the Game of the Week, tucked away in his humble abodes in Lincoln, Alabama. Hey, do you have a place on the river?
No, but I'm basically maybe a short field goal distance away from Logan Martin, though.
Hey, there you go. So you can sneak through somebody's backyard and take a dip, right?
Just about.
Now, I meant to ask you this the other day, and I'll just go ahead and ask you on the air. Did you build or just buy?
Oh, I just bought.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, my man. Well, we're going to take a quick break here and get our next guest lined up, and we will be back to take care of that here in just a couple of moments on the FNN AHSAA Reclassification Special. Stay with us. And welcome back to FNN Network's AHSAA Reclassification Special. Jim Jacobs, James Hardy, and joining us now, our first coach that we've been able to speak to today. Not because we haven't tried, but we've had so many good guests. It's hard to work everybody in. But I'm really glad we could work this guy in because he knows a ton about switching classifications and what it does to a program, and the cost of doing all this and all of those kind of things. Welcome into the show, Coach Miles Holcomb of the Southside Panthers. Coach, did you have a good holiday?
We did. Yes, sir. We sure did. I appreciate you having me on. It was always good. Holiday was good. And kind of back in the rhythm of school now, and got the kids in and everything else. So it was good. It was good. How about
I spent most of my holidays in hospitals and rehab centers with this ankle I broke. But
yes, sir.
other than that, family and friends and stuff like that, it makes a difference. All right,
yes,
Coach,
yes,
I'm gonna ask you the first question I've asked everyone that's joined us so far today. What are your impressions of the reclassification and what the AHSAA has done to separate public and private schools? What are your thoughts?
I think for us, being in a larger classification, I think the split public and private, like we kind of knew was really not going to have a ton of effect on us. We didn't know, exactly where we were going to land, whether we were going to be on the same classification, because essentially we're in the same classification that we were in. It's just, like they call it 5A now, but we're kind of in the same situation that we've been in. Now our region looks a little different, but still competing against a lot of the same people that we have in the last 4 to 6 years. The public private thing, I think, is something that obviously is a hot topic, and I think when you talk about some lower classifications in other sports, I think it's probably a bigger issue than it is for us in our classification.
Right, for sure. I guess let's talk about the region first. Of course, you got Clay Chalkville, Oxford, that are perennial top of the list for this group of teams, which you haven't been a part of yet. Pell City's obviously going to be better with Gaines moving in to take that program over. St. Clair County's on the climb. Where's Southside fall in all this?
I guess we'll find out. I think we didn't really know. There's so many things that kind of got floated out there. We knew what our numbers were, but who knew? Going into it, there'd been 3 or 4 different things. I got a call yesterday about, hey, this is what I'm hearing now, and everybody's trying to kind of figure out where are we and everything like that. And so the best thing you can do is, like we told our kids today, like everybody wants a great atmosphere and they want great environments to play high school football in. And you look at our region, and you can't find a game that we're going to play that's not going to be a great environment and a great atmosphere. And I think that's one of the best parts of it. Like, you want a chance to compete against really good football teams and quality football teams. And I think we're going to get our opportunity to. When you look at that region from the top down is tough. And so, in every single region game you play, like if you don't play your best, like there's a chance you're gonna get beat, and if you ain't careful, you get embarrassed.
Well, Coach, we all know what it takes these days to run these programs, and apart from the competitive aspect of the region, the second thing I look at is, can we make some money? I think you've got some.
That's exactly right.
I think you've got some really good gate games in this region.
There is no question. You look going from playing the teams that are in our region now. From playing teams that was having to previously travel 2.5 hours to get here. Because the last 2 years been it's been a Huntsville region, and so there was a couple of those games that the people were having to travel 2.5 hours, and like that's hard. That's hard to ask a bunch of people to travel that far. And so, having games they're a little bit closer, having games people are, especially people around here more familiar with. I think lends itself to having better gates, because it definitely, when you talk about a county school system that is trying to do the best thing we can for our kids. Obviously, gate money is incredibly important when it comes to the budget that you can put together before the season starts. When you're looking at, all right, well, this is how much money we're expecting to bring in at each gate.
And a lot of times, Miles, the fans in the stands just don't understand what cost has come into this. I mean, when somebody told me last year what a quality helmet cost, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, you take into account, like, there's footballs now that are, you get a certain football, it's $160 a ball. I mean, that's one. You're talking about one. You're talking about, I think sometimes people forget, like, you gotta pay for those officials too. Like, they don't come out here out of the goodness of their heart, and in our case, like, we're not turf, so we're grass. So then you got to take into account, like, all the things that it requires to make sure that the field is the way that it's supposed to be. Ours last year was not, and so we had to put a little extra money into it to make sure that it didn't look like that again. And so, like, all those hidden costs kind of add up. Especially in a smaller. And we are, I guess, a smaller 5A program now. When you look at the numbers, and so it is not for free. I can tell you that. Like, there is nothing that happens where they're like, yeah, we'll just give you that. From the weight room to helmets to reconditioning to equipment to everything that you can think of. I mean, even down to feeding your kids, like team meals. I mean, that's something that every team has. It's something that everybody's going to have. But you're talking about, on the low end, $10,000 to feed your kids. I mean, and that's on the low end.
It's another question I wanted to ask you is, we're seeing a lot of the county schools here in Calhoun County going to turf. Is it the answer to some of the cost of having a grass field, or is it just preference, or what would you like to see happen at your school?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think the kids like playing on grass. I think when you ask them, I think kids enjoy playing on grass surfaces. Now, they enjoy playing on good grass surfaces. On preface, we'll say that. And so I think turf is easier maintenance wise, but there is some maintenance still involved with turf. It's
right.
It's not as much. Is it cost effective? Like, I hadn't sat down and looked at the numbers, in depth enough to know. I think if you take care of your turf and you do things the way that you're supposed to, I think over a long period of time, I would imagine that with the amount of money that you have to spend on a grass field, that you would save some money. Now, how many years that's going to take you to save some money I don't know, but you take into account, for us, we got to get the practice field right and the game field. So there's two fields essentially, because we don't practice on the game field, and so if it's a turf game field, you can practice on it. And it's a little bit easier. It kind of makes everything else a little bit easier. And so from that aspect of it, like, you don't have to buy paint really. You don't have to buy, some of the stuff that you have to when you have a grass surface. But, I think that's something that for us, like, we got a couple other things that we're going to try to make happen this year. And there's some things that our county's working with us and our county schools on to try to make sure that, we can have the right type of environment for our home games this year. That's a little bit different than what we've had in the past. And so I think there's an investment in athletics in our county that they're trying to make sure that our schools in the county have an opportunity to compete, in whatever classification that is at the highest level.
In looking at this, and you have no reason to look at what I'm getting ready to say something about, but you may have an opinion about it. In looking at the reclassifications today that came out and the private and public school side of it, I got to tell you, I think the private schools got the short end.
And I haven't looked at it. I can tell you this though, from what I have seen of the local teams that ended up, private ended up having to be separated, I think when they look at the cost of travel, I think it's going to be astronomical.
And I mean, there's a lot of it too, Coach. I mean, there's, when you look at that classification with the three schools over there in your area with Westbrook and Coosa Christian, they've got to go play. Well, they may not have to go this year, but they may have to go to Mars Hill and several other places. So it's just a question of, I don't know. And then there's no competitive balance in it anymore. So, you kind of look at that. I mean, who's going to beat Mars Hill out of that bunch?
It's tough. That's a tough draw for sure. I think that the question is, and what I've heard from everybody, the people who were, I guess, for it, talk about, competitive balance and talking about, you're having to play teams that have more resources than you do. I mean, if we didn't have a chance against teams that have more resources than us, we might as well just take all our balls and put them in a bag and just stay in the house. I mean, if you look at our region, when it comes to resources, I don't think we're near the top.
I would say that it was probably the case.
And we're fortunate to have what we do have. We had a parent meeting the other night, and we're fortunate to have all the things that we do have. But I just can't see using the fact that somebody else has more resources than you do as a reason to, make decisions. But that nobody asked me, so it's our job to try to figure out the best way that we can to help our kids be competitive. And in some places you got to be a little more creative. And in some places, you're fortunate to have a couple extra things. That's how life is. That ain't anybody's fault. That's reality.
Yeah. I don't know. There just seems to be still areas for improvement. And I know the AHSAA is, in the middle of a firestorm kind of down there politically. And, I'm surprised they got done what they did.
When you look at it, you talk to a couple coaches, I'm talking to a couple guys this morning, they're almost in a lose-lose situation, with, it kind of got backed up. And
yep.
I know all of us were trying to figure out, hey, we need to make sure we get these schedules in. Today's been a little hectic trying to, once it did come out, who's playing what day, and can you get some other things scheduled and everything else. And so, you just got to that point where you can't make everybody happy. There's going to be somebody that's going to be upset regardless of what the outcome was. And so I definitely don't envy that situation with them. You're never going to make everybody happy. They're not, they wasn't going to make a decision. It was going to make everybody happy. That is a tough deal. It's a tough job, I would assume. Probably similar to ours. It's a tough issue, especially in a case like this, And so, like I said, we didn't necessarily spend a ton of time, looking at what was going to happen with public and private from our end, just because we knew, in the upper classifications, there wasn't a ton of movement going to happen because of them pulling out a bunch of larger classification private schools. And
right.
So we were trying to focus on where do we fall when it comes to the numbers, how are they going to do it? Because we'd heard a couple of different things. Are they going to put 64 teams in the new 6A? Are they going to split up 7A and 6A and then funnel everybody else down? And so you just really didn't know. You really didn't know which direction to go when it came to scheduling, especially, and much less, your sub-varsity programs, scheduling teams that you're going to end up having to play when you get to the varsity level.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for your time. James, you got a last question for Miles?
Yeah, I'm interested, Coach, as far as just you're coming off your first year back to Southside. Just kind of give us an overall thought of where you see your program right now in the off season.
I think we've had a really good off season. I think it's easier to have a good off season when you don't go 3-7. I think our kids were disappointed. You obviously hate it for the guys who were our senior class this past year. I felt like we should have done a better job and found a way to give them a better opportunity to have some more success than we did. Felt like there was a couple games we kind of let, slip away from us. And it, ain't nobody else's fault but mine. It's just, wish we could have made, some different calls and prepared a little bit better. And, I think our guys are excited about the opportunity to play, especially a schedule like this. You never really know how they're going to respond when they saw the schedule, and so that's kind of the thing you can't really control as a coach. But, it seems like our guys are excited. I don't think any of them enjoyed the outcomes that we had last year. And so I think they're eager to get back on the field and get a chance to play again. And, I have thoroughly enjoyed watching them work so far this off season. We kind of gave them a week and a half off to, get some stuff turned in. And then the off season, our off season lifting kind of began, as soon as we had a chance to. And they've been nonstop ever since. And it's, there's a couple times that weather kind of got us a little bit. And so we tried to either go indoors or, wasn't able to bring them in. And you'd have thought that, we canceled the season on them because, we were supposed to run or we were supposed to get lift in. The weather kind of got us. And, I think that's been a pleasant surprise for us. Just kind of getting guys back in there and working, and they're excited about it, and they're kind of holding each other accountable. And so that's all you can ask for as a coach. You kind of lay it out for them and give them a theme for the day, and they want accountability, and had some great conversations with them and exit interviews and what they wanted to see change and what they enjoyed about last year and, what their concerns were and things like that. And so I think it was really good. We made some changes that we felt like we needed to make, and excited about what we get to do every day.
Well, Coach, there's no way we can do a season without seeing you at least once. So,
yes, sir.
We look forward to seeing you this fall, and hopefully, it'll be a good year for the Panthers.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate you letting me be on here, and I appreciate what you guys do for high school athletics.
Thank you, sir. It's our pleasure. All right, that is Coach
Yes,
Miles Holcomb of the Southside Panthers, and we've got, let's see, let's go ahead and see if we can bring in our next guest while we're talking, and we'll merge it. Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
How are you? You had a long day.
Yeah, but that's about par for the course.
All right. John Holder for After the Game, the Friday night high school scoreboard show that they're doing now that a lot of folks are taking advantage of. They do a great job. Of course, John's a walking encyclopedia of high school football in the state of Alabama, and anytime we get a chance to bring him into anything we're doing, it's always our privilege because we know we're going to hear good stuff. John, I'll ask you the same thing I've asked all our guests so far today. What are your thoughts on your first impressions of what's happened today?
Well, and I said this to some folks earlier in the week when all the rumors are going around that if the rumors were out there about a split, separation, restructuring, whatever you want to call it, if those were all true, it would be the biggest impact on high school sports in this state since we went from 4 to 6 classes back in 1984. That was 42 years ago. And so a lot of folks, a lot of our people that are coaching right now, we don't have very many coaches that were very, very few, and maybe a handful in this state that we've been coaching back then in 1984. So this is, I think for the sake of saying this is the modern era in the last, 4 decades, I think this is the biggest, most impactful thing that's happened to high school sports in our state in over 40 years.
When you look at the public versus the private separation here, I get the impression that the private schools got the short end of the stick. Your thoughts on that?
Well, let me give you an example of this, okay? Let's look at the private school 2A. All right, the large school private schools.
Right.
Okay, you had two schools that just 2 years ago moved over from the AISA, and they had been there forever and for years and years and years. Lee Scott, which is in Auburn,
right,
and Glenwood, which is in Smith Station. Let's take Lee Scott. I've been to their campus, was just in their campus a couple of months ago. They're right there behind the Auburn Mall in Auburn. Their region now, and let me also say this about Glenwood. Glenwood and Lee Scott both are the two smallest schools. But in this region that Lee Scott is in, they are not only the smallest school in their region, but their region consists of Briarwood and John Carroll in Birmingham. It also consists of American Christian in Tuscaloosa. And it also consists of 4 schools, in those 4 schools being Madison Academy, Randolph, St. John Paul II Catholic, and Westminster Christian. So you got a school that's in Auburn, and their region includes 2 teams in Birmingham, a team in Tuscaloosa, and 4 teams in Huntsville.
I mean, the travel costs, John, are going to be astronomical.
I'm sure that was a great. I'm not sure the folks at Lee Scott are really excited about that. Then you go to Glenwood, 30 miles to the east of them, over in Smith Station, or Phoenix City, for folks who don't know where Smith Station is. They are also the smallest school in their new region. Okay, their region they've got a school in Montgomery, they got a school in Dothan, and the rest of the schools in their region are all in Mobile or Baldwin counties. So you got Faith Academy in Mobile, McGill-Toolen Catholic in Mobile, St. Michael Catholic over in Baldwin County in Fairhope, St. Paul's Episcopal in Mobile, UMS Wright Prep in Mobile, Houston Academy in Dothan, and Montgomery Catholic in Montgomery, and they're sitting over there basically on the Chattahoochee River in Georgia. I'm not sure that those folks are real happy right now with that. You're looking at region games that are going to be for both of those schools, for both Glenwood and Lee Scott. You're looking at region games, multiple region games, 4 or 5 region games where the schools are 4 hours away.
And that's that's nuts.
That's what I haven't had time to sit down and look at every little nuance of this. I will tonight, but that just struck me right there with those schools. If those 2 schools said we're going back to the AISA, who could blame them?
Yeah, exactly.
Who could blame them?
Well, John,
wanted to go back.
Let me ask you this. From an administrative standpoint, from both sides, public and private, what did each want? I mean, I know you've probably heard a lot, but from just guesstimating on what you've heard, which side? I mean, each side, what did they want?
I don't think there's a consensus because I've seen some different people who put out polls where they polled high school coaches, and there was kind of a split. There were I think I saw one poll where 43% wanted it to not change. They wanted to stay the same and not be a split. We had some that wanted there to be, there was another certain percentage that wanted there to be a split, like is what we got. I think about a third of the respondents wanted to split where the private schools would stay in the association and then have their own playoffs, which is what we got. And then there are some, and there's a sentiment out there, which I don't share this sentiment at all, but there's a sentiment out there, and I've talked to people who want the private schools completely kicked out of the athletic association and gone. They just have a hatred for school choice in private schools. And that boils down to the athletics part of it. So I don't know that there's a consensus of what anybody wanted. I don't think there were 2 sides to this. I think there were multiple sides to this. And, the thing that I've been able to gather is that, most schools either didn't care, your large schools, your 6A and 7A schools, private schools are a non-entity with them. I mean, they don't care. They don't play against them. They don't compete against them. So I don't think your big 6A and 7A schools really care. I think it was really down in the 3A, 2A level where people were, and ironically, your state champion this year in football was a private school in 2A and in 3A. And I think that's, if there was angst anywhere, it was probably there because they felt like there were, unfair advantages and things like that, which always goes back to recruiting. And I've always said this on the recruiting thing, there is not one rule that the Alabama High School Athletic Association has, or should say does not have in place to deal with illegal recruiting. Whether it be public or private, city or county, they have the rules in place. There's not a need for new legislation. They have all the rules in place to deal with it. So my thing has always been, if you're a public school coach and you think that private school is cheating, then get the evidence and go to the athletic association, and then the athletic association is incumbent upon them to investigate it and throw down the penalties and punish the people if they're doing something wrong. But I don't know that there's two sides to this thing. I think there's multiple sides to this thing.
Well, when I look at the private schools, the early playoff games, and there can't be that many that will determine who plays for the championship, but some of those early games are going to be really ugly.
Yeah, and I would say that in the small school, and that's probably where there's the biggest disparity as far as from a competitive standpoint. And I knew this was coming when they started talking about doing this, but you've got schools like Donahoe and Victory Christian in our area, for instance. Right. Shoals Christian, for instance. Lindsay Lane up in Athens, who's just now starting football and coming into the association. They're going to be in the same classification with St. James and Montgomery Academy and Trinity Presbyterian and Bayside Academy and Mars Hill Bible and Westbrook Christian and Coosa Christian. I don't think anybody is under any kind of illusion of what would have happened this year if a school like Coosa or Westbrook, what would have happened if they had played a Donahoe or a Victory this year.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's even though they've got it down to two, different classifications, there's still a big difference there as far as from a competitive standpoint. It's really tough. And Donahoe and Victory, I think, were from a geographic standpoint, Donahoe and Victory were talking about teams in our area, were very fortunate, blessed, whatever, that they didn't get they got in a region where they can compete. They can compete with Autauga and Elwood and Holy Spirit and Pickens Academy. That's a pretty good region. They'll be very competitive there. If they had been put into a region, that's region 3. If they had been put in region 4 with Coosa and Westbrook and Mars Hill,
not a chance. Not a chance.
Not in 2025. Don't know what the future holds, but and if let's say a Donahoe or a Victory makes the playoffs, and they very easily could in this region that they're in the playoffs, you're talking about a school like a Donahoe or a Victory going up against a Mars Hill, a St. James, a Bayside, a Mobile Christian. Those schools are just much, much larger, we talk about unfair advantages and things like that.
Yeah.
Not all private schools are swimming in money. Go to Faith Christian, go to JCA and see if you think those folks are swimming in money.
No, they're not.
Not every private school is St. Paul's or UMS.
And the other thing about that is it seems like that they should have, the AHSAA, should have tried to look at some sort of seating opportunity here for the private schools to keep the playoffs competitive and, of interest. I mean, let's face it, John, nobody but us in the media here would pay a lick of attention to Donahoe playing Mars Hill Bible right now because we know what's going to happen.
Well, the Athletic Association is in a tough situation.
Absolutely.
And we interviewed earlier today. We interviewed Mike Welch, and from our District 6 rep on the Central Board, and the study and the scenarios that have been. I have no doubt with what they were tasked with doing that the Central Board did the very best job that they possibly could do with what they were tasked with doing. A lot of what's going on that we don't know about above what's been put out in the media on the surface, we don't know what is going on with a lot of this stuff with the state legislature, with the governor's office. The lieutenant governor this afternoon, boy, he didn't make any bones about how he felt about it, and with his statement. And then,
well, share with us what that was, John, because I have not heard about it.
I'll have to let me see if I can pull that up and read this from Will Ainsworth. He is the if I can find that in all of this. It's been out there at a lot of places, and I don't know if I can find it, but basically he really was against what happened today. He was against the split, and he made his, officially from his office, from the lieutenant governor's office, he made it pretty clear, very clear as a matter of fact. His statement was, and again, this is, I want to make sure that people understand this is coming from, not from me. I'm quoting this from the lieutenant governor's office. I'm confident that AHSAA Executive Director Heath Harmon and the governing board will be remembered for extinguishing the flame of competitiveness and abandoning any effort at simple fairness and good sportsmanship under their watch. Rather than allowing Choose Act students to retain their eligibility as the law requires, Harmon and the AHSAA have opted instead to segregate our public and private schools, which is punitive, wrong, and just plain hateful. The coaches participating in this boneheaded decision care only about winning championships, not about the high school athletes they are supposed to serve, the lessons about sportsmanship they are supposed to teach, and the simple respect and dignity that students and their parents deserve. That is unquote. That's the quote. That is the release that came today from Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth. And so he used language like hateful, called the coaches boneheaded.
Well, so, we kind of know what side of the road that car's on, don't we?
We do. Absolutely. 100%. He stood against what happened today. I'm a little bit like, I'll say a little bit. I agree. Mike Welch said on our show today that, hey, this is it. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens over the next couple of years and see how things go, and have a positive attitude about it and jump in and see. Nobody really knows. We're in uncharted territory. This has never happened before in the state of Alabama, and it could be a good thing. The one thing about it is some of the public schools that have been been really adamant about getting rid of the private schools, there's no excuses now for not winning. So it's time to see what happens there. But going back to my point on that, after with Will Ainsworth with a strong public statement like that coming from the lieutenant governor of the state today, can you imagine what is being said and done behind the scenes that the public doesn't see and hear?
Well,
and that's my point about the Central Board and the tough position they've been in. Can you imagine the legislation, the lawsuits, the threatened lawsuits, the lawsuits that are out there now, the proposed legislation, the communication back and forth between the state legislature, the governor's office, the lieutenant governor's office. Can you imagine how? And these guys like a Mike Welch, who's on the central board, they don't get paid to be on the central board. They are servants, serving our local schools, serving our high schools, both public and private, in the state of Alabama for the betterment of high school athletics. And they've had a very tough job with a lot of pressure, Jim, coming from a lot of different places. And we probably don't know 10% of what they probably have had to deal with behind the scenes during all this.
Yeah, absolutely. James, any thoughts on this?
I'm just, as far as just a big picture to both of you, do you feel like after today that especially high school football has it taken a step forward, back, or is it, I guess as it's been, you've already mentioned, John, is there's just still a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions to be answered as far as where high school football in our state's going to go?
James, I think from my vantage point, I think it's too early to tell. I will say this from a fan standpoint, and we talked about this today. From a fan standpoint, I am excited because with 7A being eliminated, the private schools being taken out, and basically condensing into 5 classes. You took the top 32 teams and put them into 6A now instead of 7A. We basically took 6 classifications, condensed it down into 5, and what that did is that created some matchups and some regions that we've never seen before. So from a fan standpoint, I am excited because let's look, for instance, at Class 4A Region 6.
I was about to bring that up.
Central of Clay County. They're celebrating in Clay County. And Ashland and Lineville and Millerville and Mella Valley, they're celebrating because since the existence of that school, they have been in the South pretty much. So their playoffs this year, they had to go to Viger. If they had won, they would have had to go back to Mobile and play Williamson. They've longed for a long time to be in the North, and they're now in the North. They have longed to be in 4A. They are now in 4A. They have longed to be in a region where they were playing local teams, and that helps the gates, and it helps the fan interest, and it helps everything. And, and for most years, Clay Central's had people like Valley and Beauregard and Marbury and Elmore County and those kind of folks in their region. Now they've got Alexandria and Anniston and Jacksonville and Lincoln and Sylacauga. They kept them, and Leeds and Moody. And that's a tough region, but boy, look at the matchups that we're going to see there. Everybody this year wanted to see Clay Central play Moody. Now we got it. We're going to see for the first time ever, we're going to see Clay Central play Jacksonville. We're going to see Anniston and Clay Central for the first time ever play each other. We got an Anniston-Leeds matchup, an Anniston-Moody matchup, just in that one region. So I tell you, I'm excited about that. And we can go through every region and look at matchups that we've never seen before, and then playoffs, potential matchups in the playoffs that we've never seen before, and a lot of what-ifs, like Clay Chalkville moving down to 5A, which is just unbelievable. And we're going to see a lot of just great matchups there. One of the things, even in the private school thing, we're going to see a matchup this football season, Westbrook and Coosa Christian. Think about that one, 2 miles apart.
Yep.
On Steel Station Road. And we're going to see a great matchup. Everybody would have loved to have seen that matchup this year, so we're going to get it. So there are a lot of positives from this that have happened because we're going to see some really great matchups, especially here in our part of the state, I think.
Well, and I like what I see with 3A Region 4, where you've got Asheville and Hanley and Munford and Talladega and Weaver and Cleburne County. Childersburg's got a kind of a tough draw there from a travel standpoint. And you even see White Plains in here. And I think that's a region that with Clint Smith's continued footprints out there, they're going to be able to compete in.
Yeah, and the thing I like about that region is the fact that, looking at it, and I know they've lost a good amount of talent, but just looking on paper at it, Hanley is probably going to be the favorite in that region as we begin the season.
Totally agree.
But once you get past Hanley, though, then you start looking at the rest of the teams in that region. And I agree, you're going to see a lot of very competitive football games in that region. Cleburne County and White Plains is a budding rivalry now. And now it means even more because they're going to be in the same region with each other.
Yep.
And so that's going to be huge. And you got Munford, you got Talladega in there, you got Asheville, who's coming along with Mark Sanders over there. You mentioned Childersburg. I mean, that's going to be a very competitive region. And, a team like White Plains, I've said all along, and I think Clint Smith agrees with this, if they could just get a winning season and get in the playoffs, it changes the whole dynamic out there. And with this region that they're going into, White Plains has got a chance to do that over the next couple of years.
I think so. And I think that's, those kinds of positives are what I like to see in these areas that are really honed in our home group there, John. You got great gate games for these schools, and God knows they need them. This stuff costs so much. And it's just great that they don't have to travel all over the state, where they know their fan bases probably can't travel because of the distance and the time involved. I mean, it just, to me, makes a ton of sense. I mean, I'm double thumbs up on what I've seen today in the public school side of this.
Yeah, and you look at Class 3A Region 6, or 2A Region 6, I should say, and obviously Piedmont dropping down, they're going to be the prohibitive favorite. They're loaded again, got a great team coming back. They'll be the prohibitive favorite. But once you get past that, then Ohatchee, Gaston, Pleasant Valley, Sacs, Welborn, those kind of teams. That's going to be a very competitive region. And the really good thing I like about that from a local fan standpoint is, with the exception of Vincent, every team in that region is in Calhoun or Etowah counties.
Right. Not going to run the bus. Not going to run the bus dry to go into these games.
And that creates interest as well because, to be quite honest, the kids at Welborn, the kids at Ohatchee, the kids at Gaston and Piedmont, they don't know anything about Vincent. Probably couldn't pick it out on a map. But they know the kids. Those Ohatchee kids, they know the Piedmont kids. They know the ones from Pleasant Valley and Sacs and Welborn and Gaston and those places. They know that they're familiar with each other. So there's the rivalry aspect that's going to be very good. And I think that's going to be a real competitive region. Again, maybe Piedmont this year will be the prohibitive favorite, obviously, in that region. But after that, it could be very much wide open with the rest of those teams.
Right. Well, we're not going to have a hard time finding a game of the week come August. That's for sure.
No, you won't. You got a lot of great local games that are going to come into play there, and so I think it's going to be good. Southside moving back in with Oxford and Pell City. I think that's going to be a good thing. Gadsden City still. I was a little bit surprised that Gadsden City stayed is one of the 32 largest schools in the state. I had heard that even their numbers were dropping over there, and so I was a little bit surprised they stayed in the top 32. But even their region is still manageable. They got a couple of 7As like Bob Jones and James Clemens moving in, but Gadsden City will in that region. They stayed out of that Birmingham big boy region with Thompson and Vestavia and Hoover. So I think that's going to be manageable for Ali Smith and his team over at Gadsden City, making the region they're in.
When we looked at it first thing today when it came out, my first response was Gadsden City will be all right.
Yes, absolutely. No question about it.
I don't see any reason why they would not be a playoff team out of that region. Well, John, we've taken more of your time than I intended to. But, of course, like I said, anytime we get a chance to get you on, it's always great because we we know we're going to get good, reliable information from a guy who's watched this stuff for longer than I have, and I know I've been watching it for at least 25 years around here.
Well, I'm headed into, as far as broadcasting, I'm heading into year 36. And my dad was a high school coach.
Right.
For my entire life. I tell people this story all the time. This is true. When I was born, my dad was the head football coach at Piedmont. And I was born on a Thursday, and Piedmont was getting ready to play Cherokee County the next night. So my dad came to the hospital in Gadsden, checking on me, making sure I'm all right and everything's good. But then he's right back to football practice and right back to the game the next night with Center.
Well, that's for sure. You're incredibly well thought of, and I envy your reputation. I'll put it that way.
Well, Jim, I appreciate that. I just, it's like anything else. Everybody's passionate about something, and I'm just passionate about high school football. That's what it happens to be.
I hear you, buddy. Well, listen, have a great weekend. Try to keep the ice and snow away from us. I know that's one of your other passions, and
yes, it is, and I think we're going to be okay there.
Yeah, I think so. All right, John, have a great weekend, man. It was good to talk to you.
Y'all too. Thank you.
All right, that is John Holder joining myself and James Hardy here on the FNN Reclassification Show. And from a baseball term, James, I think we're rounding third and heading home.
I think so too, and I think John provided really a lot to think about as far as just I think the positives when it comes to the area matchups that'll be created, and especially for the schools around, really all the schools around their area that could see some increased profits coming their way from the gate, but still maybe a lot of uncertainty as far as just the big picture, where the direction of especially high school football goes in the next few years.
No question. And as I said just a moment ago, I think we're going to potentially have one of our best years, which will be our 16th, when we get a chance to lay pen to paper and put a schedule together. And it'll obviously change. It always does. But we're going to have some great football games to go see this fall.
And I'd say that's always good for us, good for everyone. It's, just doing the over 5 seasons now with you as far as covering high school football in our area, it's always special just to observe how the communities we go to, certainly on those Friday nights in the fall, but any sport that we do, just how the communities embrace not only their teams, but the young men and women that stood up and represent their communities every time they go out and play.
Well, I've said many times, if you had told me back when we started doing this, back in 2011 it was, that we would have the opportunity to touch so many people with game coverages on Friday night, and be able to do what we've done with streaming and the technical side of it with the cameras and the replays and all that stuff, and have great people in the booth like James and Coach Bullock. It's happened, and we all love doing it. I mean, we're not getting rich doing it, but we love doing it, and we're going to continue to try to, make this thing a big deal for as long as we can. Now, don't forget, coming up for us, we're going to have an area basketball tournament. We're trying to put that together now. It's the area that includes Cherokee County, White Plains, Alexandria, and Cleburne County. Cleburne County and Alexandria are tied for the lead in the region, so we don't know where the area tournament's going to be just yet, but we plan to cover that, the preliminaries and the championship game for those kids, and then we're back to JSU mid-month, starting the 17th of February all the way through the 25th for the 42-game marathon called the Northeast Regionals. And that's a labor of love, trust me. that stretches us all beyond where we usually can go. It's a lot of work, but we love doing it. And that comes up. And then in March, we will have our annual FNN High School Football Awards Night. And, coming up very soon, we've got to announce the nominees for Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and also our Team of the Year. And this year, we're also adding another new award for Game of the Year. So, Football Man will be in demand.
There you go.
All right, James. Well, you're ready to do baseball, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, between basketball and college softball season, it's less than a month away, so it's going to get really cranked up for me pretty soon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good people can always find work. That's always been my belief. So you're obvious,
without question,
and you're one of the good ones. So we're glad you're part of our family, and hope you'll continue to be for many years to come. All right, that's gonna do it for us. We appreciate all the support that it takes to put something like this together. You have been seeing, if you've been watching on the screens, we want to thank David's Appliances for joining us in sponsoring today's presentation of the AHSAA Reef Classification Special. Ethan Rogers, your one-stop shop for insurance. You can give Ethan a call at 256-447-8501. You can't beat Alpha, guys. I mean, you just can't. Also, we want to say thank you to the Bell Ringer Florist and Gifts over in Heflin, and they have got a dozen rose special right now. And if you'll give them a call or scan the barcode here on the ad, and you'll have plenty of chances to do that again. Also, Bucks Island on Highway 77 in Southsides. You know what the deal is. Don't buy a boat until you get a Bucks quote. You'll be messing up for sure. We also want to say thank you for joining us again this year. Dana Lacey at Dana Lacey's Ultra Beauty Bar. They are also located on Ross Street in Heflin. She's a great cosmetologist and does wonderful work and has a very loyal clientele. So we thank Dana for being with us again this year. And finally, the folks at David's Wrecker Service. Boy, he does body shop work and also there with Rabin's Automotive. They do 24-hour towing, and they can take care of you if you find yourself stranded. Just give them a call at 256-435-7083. And with that, we are done for this round of the AHSAA reclassification. Again, if you're looking for the schools in our area, very shortly we will have the graphics up on our Facebook page where you can look them, copy and paste them, all that stuff, so you can do with them whatever you like. And for that, that's it. That's a wrap. For all of us here at the Friday Night Network, Jim Jacobs wishing you all a pleasant Friday evening.